In this video, I'm going to discuss the current status of stimulus package negotiation and provide a general stimulus package update. So where do we stand on negotiations? Well, I can tell you that over the weekend when President Trump signed 3 presidential memorandums and 1 executive order, it did not signal the end of stimulus package negotiations over the next stimulus package, but it actually created a whole new set of legal issues and more drama between the two parties. Now, people are criticizing President Trump for his executive order as a political stunt and negotiation tactic. Now, yes, President Trump did sign his executive orders over the weekend. Now it's an issue of whether or not he's going to try and implement them and how to go about doing so. The White House press secretary said on Fox News Monday morning that President Trump plans to implement 4 executive orders pertaining to unemployment, student loans, the payroll tax holiday, and evictions. But before we get into the rest of the video, I really just want to say thank you to all my returning subscribers. I appreciate each and every one of my Joe-Dolls. If you're new to the channel, welcome. Consider subscribing and turning on the notification bell as I'm posting valuable new content at least twice a week. Alright guys, so these actions taken by President Trump is definitely going to put more pressure on the Democrats to compromise and come up with an agreement. Now, the latest compromise by the Democrats was to reduce the proposed stimulus plan from $3.4 trillion down to $2.4 trillion. On Friday, Treasury Secretary Steven Mnuchin called the reduction, quote, a non-starter, as the lower price tag reflects a change in timeframes rather than a reduction in amounts. Democrats are standing strong in their amounts but offered to reduce the time. So for example, Democrats want $600 a week for unemployment through, let's say, early to mid next year. So now they are willing to compromise and reduce it down to the end of the year to save on the total price of the package. Now, the Republicans initially proposed a stimulus package of $1 trillion. So by meeting at $2 trillion, you would think that that would be a fair compromise. All right, guys, so let's take a look at some news footage to put the stimulus negotiations into perspective.
The White House remain farther apart than they've been before, it would seem, on a long-term solution for COVID-19 relief. This after the president signed executive actions over the weekend to deal with the economic fallout from the pandemic. And while Treasury Secretary Steve Mnuchin indicates that the White House is open to more negotiations, Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer says they are still far from the same page.
We're prepared to put more money on the table. So where there are things, as I said, that made sense to compromise, we've compromised. So we're not stuck at the $1 trillion, but we're not going to go to unlimited amounts of money to do things that don't make sense.
Their proposal will not deal adequately with testing, will not deal adequately with opening schools safely, will not deal adequately with the people being evicted from their homes, will not deal adequately with unemployment insurance, will not deal adequately with state and local needs. It'll be a disaster.
Now, Treasury Secretary Steven Mnuchin recently stated that Republicans are not stuck at $1 trillion, so that's a great thing, but that they do not want to spend an endless amount of money. To me, guys, this is just a slap in the face to the American people, and it makes me upset. We are in the midst of a very serious healthcare crisis, which has now led to our current economic conditions that we are experiencing. The politicians make it seem like a bunch of people just woke up one day and decided not to go to work. There are millions of people who are no longer receiving their federal $600 unemployment benefits, millions of people who are facing eviction or losing their homes. Now is not the time to play politics and put a price tag on our recovery. I find it so ironic that the politicians can spend millions of dollars on military equipment that we do not need, tons of money for all types of non-stimulus purposes, but we can't provide aid to the states, we can't provide aid to small businesses or the unemployed. Now, Mnuchin said passed legislation based on both parties can agree on, and that everything does not need to be done at once. Comment below, guys, what are your thoughts about the piecemeal approach? Now, this has been repeatedly opposed by Democrats. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi has stated multiple times that she would like to have a complete package passed for the American people instead of passing a bunch of individual bills. Now, the recent executive order is passed by President Donald Trump, in my opinion, was a political move to force the Democrats' hand. If the Democrats challenge President Trump's executive orders in court, they could be perceived as the bad guys in a sense, because Trump will say that the Democrats are trying to get in the way of him helping the American people since Congress can't get their stuff together. Now, despite the fact that there are huge legality issues and that in actuality these executive orders are not going to be able to do as much as what it appears on the surface, from an optics perspective, Democrats could be perceived as not helping the situation. Now, if the Democrats don't challenge the executive orders and let it slide, President Trump will appear to be the good guy, the hero in this situation, because it will look as if he was the only one that was able to get anything done on behalf of the American people. I mean, it really is a tricky situation to be in. Now, the best option for the Democrats, and honestly our country in general, is for both parties to sit down and come to an agreement on behalf of the American people. I'm just upset, guys, because it seems like there are a lot of political games being played. Meanwhile, we have the livelihood and fate of millions of Americans hanging in the balance. The priority and goal right now should be to help the American people. Now, Democrats are saying that the payroll tax holiday would harm Social Security. The White House responded saying that it's only a temporary payroll tax holiday and that the benefits would not be impacted. Now, the payroll tax holiday would allow employees to postpone paying Social Security and Medicare taxes, which is automatically deducted from your paycheck. Now, they would still be owed at a later date unless Congress agrees to waive them permanently. President Trump has already promised that if he gets reelected, the American people would not have to worry about paying those taxes at a later date. Now, as far as the unemployment benefits, President Trump signed an order allowing for $400 a week. The federal government would cover $300 and each individual state would be required to pay the additional $100 for a total of $400. Now, Democrats have said that the states are already strapped for cash and do not have the funding to pay all of their unemployed the additional $100 a week. Now, it appears that the president is borrowing money from the Emergency Disaster Fund in order to pay for these enhanced benefits. Keep in mind, guys, that we are now entering hurricane season. This funding is strictly for natural disaster. It also appears that it would be a temporary fix because the money would only provide for funding for about 4 to 6 weeks, and then we'll be right back in the same situation. Now, the CARES Act banned late fees and eviction filings until July 25th. Programs that are backed by federal mortgage programs like Fannie Mae are those that receive federal funds like HUD. Now, the Republican-authored HEALS Act didn't address stipulations on eviction, and Trump's executive order is very low on detail. The order leaves the decision to ban eviction in the hands of Health and Human Services Secretary Alex Azar and Center for Disease Control and Prevention Director Robert Redfield, taking no official stance themselves. Again, this is open to interpretation and would only possibly help you if your eviction is directly related to the spread of COVID. The president's memorandum on student loan deferral moves to waive student loan interest until December 31st, 2020, extending the current relief under the CARES Act that is set to expire September 30th by 2 months. Payments are scheduled to restart on January 1st, 2021. All right, guys, so that is your update on the status of the stimulus package negotiations and the executive order signed by President Trump this past weekend. So now we just have to wait and see how these negotiations progress. I want to be optimistic that the two sides are getting closer together, and it's encouraging to know that they want to work together towards reaching an agreement. What we do know is that whenever the agreement is reached, Secretary of the Treasury Stephen Mnuchin said that he could get the first round of $1,200 stimulus checks issued within 1 week. What are you guys' thoughts about the executive order and the status of the stimulus negotiations? Please leave your feedback below. Also, if you found value in the video, be sure to hit that like button and share this video on your social media platforms. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell, as I'm posting valuable new content at least twice a week. Thanks again for watching, and until next time.